Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the center of the council chamber, feeling the weight of 1,000 hostile eyes upon her. The chamber was massive, built to accommodate 12 different alien species, each more ancient than humanity could imagine. Above her, the crystalline form of High Counselor Vexthan pulsed with cold blue light. The being had lived for 3,000 years and looked at Chen the way a human might look at an insect. The human speaks. Vexthan's voice echoed through translation devices. We shall listen, though your words change nothing. Chen took a deep breath. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years now, fighting every day for humanity's right to exist as equals. It never got easier. The other species saw humans as children playing with matches, dangerous and stupid in equal measure. Honorable Council, Chen began, keeping her voice steady. Humanity requests permission to establish 3 new colony worlds in the Outer Sigma region. We have surveyed these planets. They are uninhabited and rich in resources. Our population needs room to grow. A deep rumble came from the Korath section. Supreme Marshal Thexvalon rose from his seat, his massive body covered in thick scales that had seen 1,000 battles. The Korath had ruled their empire for 10,000 years. They did not like newcomers. Denied, Thexvalon's voice boomed. Humans expand too quickly. You have been part of this council for only 50 years. 50. My species had not yet left our home system in such short time. You demand more and more, always pushing boundaries. This ends now. Chen felt her heart sink, but she kept her face calm. Marshal, we have followed every rule. We have paid every tax. We have contributed to Council defense forces. What more must we do to be treated fairly? The crystalline High Counselor pulsed brighter. Humanity must learn patience. You must learn your place. We have decided. The Council will vote on new restrictions for the human species. You will surrender half your military fleet. You will accept observers on all your worlds. You will stop expanding for the next century. The chamber fell silent. Chen felt ice in her veins. This was worse than she had feared. You cannot be serious. You are asking us to become prisoners in our own territory. We are telling you what will happen, Vexthan said. The vote will proceed. You may leave now, Ambassador. This does not concern you anymore. Chen wanted to scream. She wanted to rage at the injustice. But she was a diplomat. She bowed her head slightly and walked out of the chamber with as much dignity as she could manage. As the doors closed behind her, she heard the voting begin. She did not need to stay to know the result. In her private quarters, Chen activated the secure quantum link to Earth. The face of Admiral James Okonkwo appeared on the screen. The old military man looked tired. He always looked tired these days. They voted against us, didn't they? He asked. Worse. They are voting right now to strip us of our fleet and put observers on every human world. James, they are going to cage us. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. How long do we have? They gave us 1 Earth week to comply. 7 days to surrender everything we have built. And if we refuse? Chen looked directly at the camera. Then they will use force. Thexvalon made that very clear. They call it correction. I call it war. Okonkwo nodded slowly. I will inform the President. Chen, come home. There is nothing more you can do there. Across the galaxy, on a military station orbiting Mars, Captain Sarah Ramirez watched the news with her command crew. The feed was official now. The Galactic Council had voted. Humanity had 7 days to comply or face military action. They are actually going to do it, her first officer said quietly. They are going to attack us. Ramirez stood up from her chair. Then we prepare. All ships full combat readiness. I want every weapon system checked. I want every shield generator at maximum power, and I want our people ready to fight. Captain, her tactical officer spoke up. We cannot win against the entire Council fleet. They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 300 combat-ready vessels. I know the numbers, Lieutenant, Ramirez said sharply, but we are not going to surrender. If they want our freedom, they will have to kill us to take it. Deep in a secret research facility on Europa, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stared at rows of weapon systems that humanity had promised never to build. They were weapons banned by galactic law, weapons that the Council species found horrifying and barbaric. But humanity had built them anyway, hidden away just in case. Doctor, her assistant said nervously, we just received the activation codes. Protocol Ragnarok is now live. Tanaka felt sick. She had hoped this day would never come. These weapons were designed for one purpose only, Total war. No mercy, no limits, no rules. She thought about her daughter, safe at home on Earth, playing in the garden. She thought about all the children across human space who deserve to grow up free. Begin the deployment sequence, she said quietly. If they bring war to our doorstep, we will show them what war truly means. 7 days passed like a countdown to doomsday. The Council gave humanity chance after chance to surrender. Each time, Earth's answer was the same: no. On the 7th day, Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UNSC flagship Indomitable, Captain Ramirez at his side. They watched the sensor screens with grim expressions. The entire human fleet had gathered near Earth. Every ship they had ready for the impossible fight ahead. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out. "Slipspace ruptures detected. Multiple signatures. Thousands of them." The view screen lit up with warnings. One by one, the ships of the Galaxy fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. They came in waves, each wave larger than the entire human fleet. 10,000 warships from 12 different species, all converging on human territory. Supreme Marshal Thexavalon's face appeared on every communication screen across human space. The old Korath looked almost sad. "Humans of Earth," he began, "you have refused the wisdom of the Council. You have chosen pride over peace. Your species is too dangerous to be allowed to continue on this path. By the authority of the Galactic Council, I hereby sentence humanity to correction. Your civilization will be reduced to a pre-industrial state. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your ships will be scrapped. Your colonies will be abandoned. This is mercy. We could choose extinction, but we are not monsters. Surrender now and casualties will be minimized. Resist and you will be crushed." The transmission ended. For a moment, there was total silence across the human fleet. Then Admiral Okonkwo spoke. His voice broadcast to every human ship, every human colony, every human listening across the stars. All ships, battle stations. Today they learn what humans are made of. Today we show them that we will never kneel. Today we fight for our freedom or we die trying. For Earth, for humanity, for our future. The Galaxy fleet began its approach. Humanity's tiny fleet moved forward to meet them. The first shots would be fired within the hour, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first missiles struck the outer colonies without warning. On New Perth, a mining colony of 2 million souls, the sky turned red as orbital bombardment began. The colonists had 12 minutes to reach the shelters. Most did not make it. Captain Sarah Ramirez watched the sensor feed from her ship and felt rage burning in her chest. "They are targeting civilians first," her tactical officer said, voice shaking with anger. "The mining stations, the agricultural colonies. They are killing everyone. They want to break our will," Admiral Okonkwo's voice came through the fleet channel. "They think if they hit us hard enough, fast enough, we will beg for mercy. All ships engage defensive pattern Delta. Protect what we can." The human fleet split into defensive groups, rushing to intercept the Council forces. But the numbers were impossible. For every human ship, there were 30 alien vessels. The Council had brought overwhelming force, and they used it without hesitation. Ramirez's ship, the UNSC Indomitable, led a squadron toward a Korath battle group that was heading for the Mars shipyards. Mars was humanity's greatest military production facility. If it fell, humanity lost its ability to build new ships. "All weapons, fire at will," Ramirez commanded. "Target their flagship." The Indomitable unleashed everything it had. Railguns fired solid slugs at incredible speeds. Missiles streaked across space, leaving trails of light. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The Korath flagship's shields flared bright blue as it absorbed the attack. Then it fired back. The return fire was devastating. Korath plasma weapons, refined over 10,000 years of warfare, punched through the Indomitable's shields like they were paper. Ramirez grabbed her chair as the ship shook violently. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12.
"Shield generators failing."
"We cannot take another hit like that." Around them, human ships were dying. The cruiser Valiant exploded in a ball of fire. The destroyer Hawk broke in half, its crew venting into space. The frigate Damascus tried to ram a Korath ship in a desperate final act, but was vaporized before it could reach its target. "All ships fall back," Okonkwo ordered, his voice heavy with grief. "We cannot hold this position. Retreat to Rally Point Gamma. Mars shipyards initiate self-destruct protocol. Do not let them take it intact." Ramirez wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but she knew the Admiral was right. They were being slaughtered. The surviving human ships turned and ran, using every trick they knew to escape. Behind them, the Mars shipyards exploded in a series of massive blasts, taking a dozen pursuing Korath ships with them. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky with terror. The Council fleet had reached orbit. Ships the size of cities hung above every major population center. Then the bombardment began. New York vanished in nuclear fire. Tokyo, London, Mumbai, São Paulo all burning. The defense satellites fought back, but they were swept aside like toys. Luna Base, humanity's oldest off-world settlement, went dark as enemy troops stormed through the corridors. In underground bunkers, President Maria Santos watched the death toll climb. 3 billion people dead in 48 hours, 3 billion souls gone in the blink of an eye. She felt numb, disconnected from reality. This could not be happening. This could not be real. Madam President, her military advisor said quietly, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 colony governors. They want to stop the killing. Santos looked at him with hollow eyes. Tell them to do what they must to save their people. I will not order anyone to die needlessly. And Earth, Madam President, the Council is demanding your personal surrender. They want you to broadcast a message telling all humans to lay down their arms. Santos stood up slowly. She walked to the window of the bunker, looking at a screen showing the devastated surface above. The planet she loved, the home of humanity, was burning. No, she said simply. We do not surrender. Not while I draw breath. In the asteroid belt, the surviving human fleet regrouped. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the damaged Indomitable, counting his losses. Of 300 ships, only 83 remained combat-capable. They faced an enemy of 10,000. Admiral, Captain Ramirez approached him, her uniform torn and blood-stained. What do we do now? We cannot fight them head-on. We cannot protect our colonies. Earth is under siege. We have lost. Okonkwo turned to look at her. The old man's eyes were hard as steel. We have not lost, Captain. We have only just begun to fight. Sir, I do not understand. We are beaten. Our cities are in ruins. Billions are dead. How can we possibly... They think they have won, Okonkwo interrupted. They think we will surrender now. They think this is over. But they made a mistake, Captain. A fatal mistake, and what mistake? They left us alive. They should have killed every last human in the first strike. They should have destroyed us completely. Burned every world, killed every person. But they tried to be merciful. They tried to follow their rules of war. Now they will learn that humans do not play by rules. He activated his command console and entered a long sequence of codes. Across human space, hidden facilities came online. On Europa, Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched as weapon systems powered up. In deep space caches, automated systems began moving toward their targets. On occupied colony worlds, resistance cells received activation orders. Initiate Protocol Ragnarok, Okonkwo said clearly. Authorization Okonkwo, Alpha 77 Delta. All systems activate. God help us all. On the occupied colony of New Perth, a Korath patrol moved through the ruins of the city. The soldiers were bored. The fighting was over. Humans had proven to be weak, easily defeated. One of the soldiers kicked at debris, looking for anything valuable. Then the ground beneath them exploded. Buried human mines, activated remotely, tore the patrol apart. Before the Korath could react, human guerrillas emerged from hiding, firing weapons, throwing grenades, then disappearing back into the ruins. This happened on 100 worlds simultaneously. In orbit above Earth, a Council medical ship suddenly lost all power. Then another. Then 5 more. The ships went dark, floating dead in space. Human hackers, using programs developed in secret over years, had infiltrated the Council's computer networks. They were not trying to destroy the ships. They were trying to create fear and confusion. It worked. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon stood on his flagship, reading reports with growing disbelief. Humans were attacking everywhere at once. They were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like cornered animals, using tactics that the Council found shocking and barbaric. Suicide attacks, chemical weapons, biological warfare, computer viruses, booby traps in their own cities. These humans are insane, his second-in-command said with horror. They have no honor. They do not follow the rules of war. Dexevalon felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. They do not care about honor. They only care about survival, and that makes them far more dangerous than we realized. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Okonkwo watched the reports flow in. Human counterattacks were causing chaos among the Council forces. It was not enough to win. Not yet. But it was enough to make them pause. Enough to make them doubt. He turned to address his remaining fleet. They came here thinking they would teach us a lesson. They came here thinking they were superior. Now we teach them something. We teach them that humanity does not surrender. We teach them that attacking Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. And we teach them that from this moment forward, this is total war. No mercy, no rules, no surrender. We fight until we win or until we are extinct. Are you with me? Every single officer on every remaining ship answered as one. Yes, Admiral. Then let us show them what humans are truly capable of. Prepare for Operation Vendetta. We strike at their supply lines, their colonies, their homeworlds. If they want war, we will give them war like they have never seen before. As the human fleet prepared to move, a message went out across all human frequencies. It was simple, direct, and terrifying in its promise. If they wanted us extinct, they should have finished it. Now it is our turn. The Council forces thought they had won. Supreme Marshal Thexavalon ordered his fleet to consolidate their positions, secure the conquered human colonies, and prepare for final occupation of Earth. It was a routine operation, the kind his species had performed 1,000 times before. Conquer, occupy, integrate. Simple. Then humanity showed them how wrong they were. The first convoy never reached its destination. 20 supply ships carrying food, medicine, and equipment for occupation forces simply vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage, just gone. Search teams found the ships 3 days later drifting in space. Every Council soldier aboard was dead, killed by a colorless, odorless gas that had been pumped through the ventilation systems. The human crew had all escaped in the life pods. They killed prisoners? Thexavalon said with shock. We treated those human crew members well. We followed the rules of war. His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. Marshal, the human crew were not prisoners. They volunteered. They knew the gas would kill everyone. They sacrificed themselves to destroy our supplies. Thexavalon stared at the report. What kind of species killed themselves just to hurt the enemy? What kind of madness was this? The attacks continued and escalated. On the occupied colony of Theta 5, Council forces settled into their garrison. That night, the entire water supply was poisoned. Not fatally, but enough to make every soldier violently ill. While they were sick and unable to fight, human resistance fighters struck, stealing weapons and equipment before vanishing into the wilderness. On Zeta Station, a seemingly friendly human janitor spent 3 months cleaning Council facilities. Then one day, he walked into the command center and detonated explosives hidden in his cleaning cart. He died, along with 30 Council officers. The station's command structure collapsed overnight. Captain Sarah Ramirez led a strike force of 15 small ships against a Council fuel depot. They did not fight fair. They disguised their ships as debris, drifting close to the depot before powering up and firing at point-blank range. The depot exploded, taking 47 Council ships with it. Ramirez's force lost 3 ships, but she considered it an excellent trade. The Council species were horrified by human tactics. The Vexithari, crystalline beings who valued logic and order above all else, could not understand the chaos humans created. The elegant seraph, who fought with honor and nobility, found human methods disgusting and barbaric, but most disturbing were the weapons humans used. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had spent years developing weapons that the Galactic Council had banned as too horrible for civilized warfare. Now she unleashed them without hesitation. Nanomachines that could dismantle metal at the molecular level, turning ships into dust. Bioweapons designed specifically for each Council species, non-lethal but incapacitating. Computer viruses that could infiltrate any system, no matter how secure. The Vexthari suffered most from the computer attacks. As a networked species that shared a collective consciousness, they were vulnerable to digital warfare. Human hackers found ways to inject false information into their network, causing confusion and panic. Some Vexithari began seeing hallucinations, their crystalline minds unable to distinguish real data from fake. This is not war, High Counselor Vexithon complained to Thexavalon. This is terrorism. This is barbarism. Humans do not fight with honor. No, Thexavalon agreed grimly. They fight to win, and they are very good at it. Admiral Okonkwo studied the tactical maps with satisfaction. The Council fleet was bleeding from 1,000 small cuts. They had the numbers, they had superior technology, but they did not have the will for this kind of fight. They were used to quick, clean wars between civilized species. They were not prepared for an enemy that refused to quit, refused to follow rules, and refused to value their own lives above victory. The convoy system is working, Ramirez reported. Every council supply line is under constant attack. Their forces on occupied worlds are running low on everything. Good, Okonkwo nodded. Continue the harassment. I want them paranoid and exhausted. I want them to fear every shadow. Now let us discuss Operation Hellfire. He pulled up a star chart showing the Korath supply nexus at Kragnar Station. It was the main hub for the entire invasion force, a massive station orbiting a gas giant, heavily defended by hundreds of ships and thousands of defense platforms. We cannot take it in a straight fight, Ramirez said. We do not have the firepower. We are not going to fight it, Okonkwo smiled coldly. We are going to destroy it, Dr. Tanaka, if you please. Tanaka stepped forward, displaying schematics for a weapon that made even the human officers uncomfortable. We call it a quantum compressed fusion device. Essentially, it is a hydrogen bomb compressed to the size of a baseball using quantum manipulation. The explosion is significant. How significant? Someone asked. It will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers. The station, the defense platforms, every ship in the area. Nothing will survive. How do we deliver it? Ramirez asked. Their sensors will detect any ship carrying a weapon that powerful. We do not use a ship, Tanaka said. We use a person. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she meant. A suicide mission. I will do it, a young lieutenant spoke up immediately. My family died on New York. I volunteer. So do I, another officer said. My children were on Luna base. Within minutes, 30 officers had volunteered. Okonkwo felt pride and sorrow in equal measure. This was what humanity had become, willing to sacrifice everything for survival. Lieutenant Chen, he chose a young woman with fierce eyes. You will have this honor. May your sacrifice save millions. 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Maria Chen piloted a small civilian shuttle toward Kragnar Station. She broadcast distress signals claiming engine failure. The Korath, following their protocols for handling civilians, allowed her to dock for repairs. They never detected the quantum device hidden in her body, surgically implanted and shielded. Chen walked through the station, marveling at its size. Thousands of council soldiers moved through the corridors, confident in their victory. She felt no hatred for them. They were just following orders like soldiers everywhere. But her family was dead, and humanity needed to survive. She reached the station's main reactor level and activated the device. She had 10 seconds. She used them to look at a photo of her parents killed in the bombardment of New York. For Earth, she whispered. The explosion tore reality apart. Kragnar Station, 2,000 council ships and 300 defense platforms ceased to exist. The shockwave could be detected 3 star systems away. It was the largest single loss the council forces had suffered in the entire war. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon watched the tactical display in his command center as Kragnar's signal simply vanished. Gone. 2,000 ships, tens of thousands of soldiers gone in an instant, and he knew how it had happened. A human suicide bomber. What kind of enemy does this? He said to no one in particular. What kind of species values death over surrender? His second-in-command had no answer. None of them did. They had fought hundreds of wars, conquered dozens of species, but they had never encountered anyone like humans. Most species, when faced with overwhelming force, surrendered. That was logical. That was rational. That was civilized. Humans were not civilized. Not by council standards. They were wild, unpredictable, and absolutely terrifying when cornered. Reports flooded in from across council space. Human raiders were striking deep into their territory now, hitting targets light years from Earth. A human strike force destroyed a Seraph colony ship carrying 1 million civilians. When the council complained about the attack on non-combatants, Admiral Okonkwo's response was broadcast across the galaxy. You bombed our cities. You killed our civilians. You started total war. Now you complain when we fight back using your own tactics? This is war, real war, not your civilized games. We will use every weapon, every tactic, every strategy to survive. If you do not like it, you should have left us alone. The council species began arguing among themselves. The Seraph wanted to withdraw, calling the war unwinnable. The Vexthari demanded the complete extinction of humanity as the only safe solution. The smaller species were quietly pulling their forces back. unwilling to sacrifice more for what seemed like a losing cause. Only the Korath remained committed. Thexavalon would not admit defeat. Could not admit defeat. His species had never lost a war in their entire history. He would not be the first marshal to fail, but even he was beginning to understand the truth. Humanity could not be conquered, not unless the Council was willing to kill every single human, burn every human world, and commit complete genocide. And even then, he was not sure they could succeed. Humans were too spread out, too stubborn, too willing to die rather than submit. On Earth, in the ruins of what had once been Geneva, Admiral Okonkwo stood with Captain Ramirez and Dr. Tanaka. They looked at the devastated planet, at the billions of graves, at the scars that would take centuries to heal. "We are winning," Ramirez said quietly. "The Council is losing their will to fight." "Yes," Okonkwo agreed. "But at what cost? We have become monsters to defeat monsters."
What happens when this is over?
"What will we be?" Tanaka had no answer. None of them did. They had done terrible things to survive, things that would haunt humanity forever, but they would survive. That was all that mattered now. "We finish this," Okonkwo said with finality. The Galaxy fleet was dying. Not from one massive battle, but from 1,000 small wounds that would not stop bleeding. Every day brought new reports of attacks, sabotage, and casualties. The Council species had never experienced war like this before, and their unity was fracturing under the pressure. In the Council chamber, arguments raged. The Seraph ambassador stood with her wings spread wide, a gesture of extreme agitation among her species. "We must negotiate," she insisted. "This war cannot be won. The humans will fight forever. They do not care about losses. They do not value their own lives. How do we defeat an enemy like that? We destroy them completely." High Counselor Vexthon's crystalline form pulsed red with anger. "We should have done this from the beginning. Total extermination. It is the only way. And become the monsters we claim they are," the Seraph shot back. "My people will not participate in genocide. We withdraw our forces immediately." "If the Seraph withdraw, so do the Lixian," another ambassador announced. "Our casualties are unacceptable. We joined this council for protection, not to die fighting mad humans." Supreme Marshal Thexavalon listened to the chaos with growing frustration. His own species, the Korath, had lost more than half their fleet. The military machine that had conquered a quarter of the galaxy was being beaten by a species that barely had faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. But the worst news was yet to come. Marshal, his intelligence officer, approached nervously. "We have reports from deep space scouts. Human ships. New designs. Dozens of them heading toward our positions." "New ships? How?" "We destroyed all their shipyards. We destroyed the ones we knew about, sir. Apparently, humans have been building secret construction facilities for years. And these ships? You need to see this." The tactical display showed the scans of the new human vessels. They were larger than anything humanity had built before, sleek and deadly looking. But what made Thexavalon's blood run cold were the readings. The shields were stronger than Korath shields. The weapon system showed energy signatures that matched Council technology but improved. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "We believe humans have been stealing our technology for their entire time in the Council," the officer explained. "Every treaty, every meeting, every diplomatic exchange was a chance to copy our designs. And they did not just copy, sir. They made it better." Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the first human dreadnought, the Vengeance. Behind him, 49 sister ships waited in formation. They were humanity's masterpiece, born from desperation and genius. Every system was an improvement on stolen alien technology. Faster engines, stronger shields, deadlier weapons. "All ships, this is Okonkwo," he broadcast to the fleet. "For months we have bled. For months we have died. For months we have fought against impossible odds. Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we show them what happens when you try to destroy humanity. All ships full attack speed. Target? Korath home fleet." Captain Ramirez, now commanding her own dreadnought Retribution, felt her heart race. They were going to attack the Korath homeworld itself. It was insane. It was impossible. It was perfect. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading straight into the heart of Korath space. When they emerged, they found the home fleet waiting. Over 3,000 ships defending their ancient homeworld. The Korath commander broadcast a warning. "Human vessels, you are outgunned and outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Okonkwo's response was to open fire. All 50 dreadnoughts unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The difference from previous battles was immediately obvious. Korath shields, which had easily deflected human weapons before, now flickered and failed under the improved firepower. Ships that had seemed invincible began taking damage. "What is happening?" the Korath commander shouted. "Our shields should hold against their weapons." But they did not hold. Humanity had learned the shield frequencies during years of studying Council technology. They had learned the weaknesses, the gaps, the vulnerabilities. Now they exploited everything. The Vengeance charged straight at a Korath battlecruiser, shields at maximum. The alien ship fired everything it had. The human shields held. Then the Vengeance returned fire, punching through the enemy shields and tearing the battlecruiser apart from the inside. Across the battlefield, human ships fought with terrifying efficiency. They used AI targeting systems banned by the Council but perfected by humans. They used swarm tactics with hundreds of automated drones overwhelming enemy defenses. They used suicide drones that would ram ships if they ran out of ammunition. "Target their command ship," Ramirez ordered. "All weapons, maximum power." The Retribution and 5 other dreadnoughts focused their fire on the Korath flagship. The massive vessel tried to maneuver away, but human ships were faster now. The combined firepower overwhelmed its shields, breached its hull, and detonated its reactor. The flagship exploded spectacularly. Without their commander, the Korath fleet began to falter. Some ships retreated, others fought on stubbornly, but the momentum had shifted. Humanity was winning. On the surface of the Korath homeworld, billions of civilians watched the battle in the sky with terror. For 10,000 years, their species had been conquerors. Now they were being conquered. The feeling was alien and horrifying. Dr. Tanaka watched from a hidden laboratory on Europa as her final weapon activated. It was not a bomb or a virus. It was information. For months, human hackers had been infiltrating Council networks, not to destroy but to steal. Every communication, every military plan, every secret that the Council had. Now humanity released it all publicly. The Vexthari discovered that their High Counselor had been embezzling resources for personal use. The Seraph found out that their military had been conducting illegal experiments on other species. The Lixian learned that their allies had planned to betray them after the war. Every species discovered that the others had been lying, cheating and scheming. Trust, already damaged by the war, shattered completely. The Council was tearing itself apart from within, and humanity had barely needed to fire a shot to make it happen. "Sometimes the best weapon is the truth," Tanaka said to her assistant. "Let them destroy themselves with their own secrets." Back in the Korath system, Admiral Okonkwo gave the order to cease fire. The remaining Korath ships were fleeing. The battle was over. Humanity had won. "Sir?" Ramirez contacted him, her voice filled with disbelief. "We actually did it. We beat them. We beat one fleet," Okonkwo corrected. "But yes, we have proven the point. We can win. Now comes the hard part." He opened a communication channel directly to the Korath homeworld, broadcasting to their entire population. "People of Korath, your fleet has been defeated. Your homeworld is at our mercy. We could destroy it. We could kill billions as you killed billions of us. But we will not. We are not monsters, though you have tried to make us into them. Instead, we offer you a choice. Peace on our terms, or continued war until one of us is extinct. Choose wisely." Supreme Marshal Thexvalon sat in his command bunker on the homeworld staring at the screen. The human admiral's words echoed in his mind. 50 human ships had destroyed 3,000 Korath vessels. It should have been impossible. But humans had made it possible through sheer determination and innovation. For the first time in his long life, Thexvalon felt true fear. Not fear of death, but fear of what humanity represented. A species that could adapt, learn, and improve faster than anyone else. A species that refused to accept limits. A species that would rather burn the galaxy than surrender. "Contact the Council," he said quietly to his aide. "Tell them the Korath Empire is willing to negotiate terms with humanity." Word spread across the galaxy within hours. The mighty Korath, who had never lost a war, were suing for peace. Other Council species saw the writing on the wall. If the Korath could not defeat humanity, no one could. On Earth, President Santos received the news in her bunker. She had aged 20 years in the past few months. The planet above was in ruins, 6 billion people dead, but humanity had survived. Against all odds, against all logic, they had survived. Madam President, her advisor said with tears in his eyes. They are asking for peace talks. We won. Santos nodded slowly, but she did not smile. We survived. That is not the same as winning. But it is enough. It has to be enough. Admiral Okonkwo gathered his fleet for one final jump, not to attack but to travel to the Council's capital world. Ambassador Chen Wei, who had watched her diplomatic career destroyed at the start of this war, prepared to negotiate again. But this time she would not be begging for scraps. This time humanity would dictate terms. Captain Ramirez stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at Earth through the view screen. Her homeworld was scarred and broken, but it was still there. Still spinning, still alive. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Yes. Okonkwo's voice came through her communicator. But at what cost? Remember this, Captain. Remember what we had to become to survive, and pray we never have to become it again. The human fleet formed up and jumped toward the Council capital. They went not as supplicants, but as equals. They went not as the defeated, but as victors. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The question was, would they ever trust humanity again? And did humanity? The council chamber looked different when viewed through the barrel of a gun. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the center of the room once more, but this time she was not alone. Admiral Okonkwo stood beside her in full military uniform. Captain Ramirez and 50 armed human soldiers lined the walls. Outside, the human fleet surrounded the capital world, weapons ready. The council species watched with fear and resentment. The crystalline form of High Counselor Vexthon pulsed with dark colors. Supreme Marshal Thexvalon sat with his head bowed, the weight of defeat crushing his ancient pride. The other species simply looked tired. The council recognizes Ambassador Chen Wei of Earth, Vexthon said, his voice lacking its former arrogance. You may speak. Chen looked at each council member slowly. These beings had tried to cage humanity. They had killed billions. They had thought humans would break easily, like every other species they had conquered. They had been so very wrong. Honored Council, Chen began, her voice cold and formal. We are here to discuss terms, not surrender terms, peace terms. Let me be very clear about something. Humanity did not want this war. You forced it upon us. You killed our people. You destroyed our worlds. And you learned that we do not break. We do not surrender. We adapt, we fight, and we win. You call this winning? The Seraph ambassador spoke up, her voice bitter. Your homeworld is devastated. Your colonies are ruins. Billions of your people are dead. Yes, Chen agreed, and we would do it again. We would pay that price 1,000 times rather than live as your slaves. That is what you need to understand. Humans will always choose death over submission. Always. Admiral Okonkwo stepped forward, placing a data tablet on the central table. These are humanity's terms for peace. They are not negotiable. You will accept them all, or we continue the war. And let me be clear, we know we can win now. We have proven it. The question is not whether we can defeat you. The question is whether you are willing to watch your homeworlds burn to avoid giving us what we demand. Thexvalon picked up the tablet with shaking hands. As he read, his expression grew darker. These terms are extreme. Are they? Okonkwo asked coldly. You tried to destroy our entire civilization. We could demand the same from you. Instead, we ask only for what should have been ours from the beginning. Justice. The terms were indeed harsh. Complete autonomy for all human space. No council observers, no restrictions, no interference. War reparations totaling 5 trillion credits to rebuild Earth and the destroyed colonies. Return of all human prisoners. And most significantly, a formal apology from the council, acknowledging that the attack on humanity was unjust and illegal. You want us to admit we were wrong? Vexthon's voice was filled with shock. To apologize to an inferior species? We are not inferior, Chen said quietly. That is the lesson you should have learned. We are different. Perhaps we are younger, perhaps we are less advanced in some ways, but we are not inferior, and we will never accept being treated as such again. For 3 hours, the council argued. Some wanted to continue the war, but they were a minority. Most understood that fighting further would only bring more death and destruction. The Seraph had already withdrawn most of their forces. The Lixian were on the verge of leaving the council entirely. The Korath military was shattered. Only pride kept them from agreeing immediately. Finally, Thexvalen stood. The old warrior looked ancient now, worn down by defeat. The Korath Empire accepts these terms. We acknowledge that the attack on humanity was a mistake. We acknowledge that humans have earned their place as equals. One by one, the other species agreed. Some did so willingly, others did so with obvious reluctance. But they all agreed. The war was over. President Santos watched the treaty signing from Earth, broadcast across all human networks. She saw the council members affix their marks to the document, saw the formal apology read aloud, saw humanity finally recognized as equals. She should have felt joy. Instead, she felt only exhaustion. "Madam President," her advisor said gently, "we won. It is over. Is it?" Santos looked at the devastated planet around her. "We won the war. But can we win the peace? The galaxy now fears us. They see us as mad dogs, unpredictable and dangerous. They will leave us alone, yes. But they will never trust us. They will never be our friends. We are forever marked as the species that fights too hard, kills too easily, refuses to quit." "Perhaps that is not such a bad thing," the advisor suggested. "Fear keeps enemies away better than friendship ever could." Santos was not sure she agreed, but she was too tired to argue. The Treaty of New Geneva was signed 3 months after the peace talks began. Humanity received everything they demanded. The council species paid reparations, though the payments would take decades to complete. Human space was recognized as sovereign territory, with no interference allowed. And the council issued a formal apology, broadcast across the entire galaxy. But words on paper did not heal the wounds. Earth would take centuries to fully recover. 6 billion people were dead, entire cities erased from existence. The Mars shipyards had to be rebuilt from nothing. Luna Base was a tomb that no one wanted to disturb. The psychological scars ran even deeper than the physical ones. Dr. Yuki, Tanaka, stood in her laboratory looking at the weapons she had created. The bioweapons, the nanomachines, the computer viruses, tools of total war. She thought about activating the deactivation protocols, destroying them all, but her hand hesitated over the control. "Doctor?" her assistant asked. "Are we shutting them down?" Tanaka was quiet for a long moment. "No, we keep them. We keep them all. We hide them, we lock them away, and we pray we never need them again. But we do not destroy them, because now the galaxy knows what we are capable of, and that knowledge is our greatest defense. Will we ever use them again? I hope not. I truly hope not. But if anyone ever tries to destroy humanity again..." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Captain Sarah Ramirez stood on the rebuilt observation deck of a new Earth station, watching ships come and go. Some were military vessels, still on patrol. Others were civilian freighters carrying supplies to help rebuild. She had been promoted to admiral now, given command of the new defense fleet. A young officer approached her. "Admiral, the new recruits are asking questions. They want to know about the war, about what we did." "What do you tell them?" "I tell them we did what we had to do to survive." "But Admiral, they look at us like we are heroes, like what we did was glorious." "But it was not glorious, was it?" Ramirez looked at the young officer with sad eyes. "No, it was necessary. It was survival. But it was not glorious. War never is. We killed millions. We used weapons that the galaxy considers monstrous. We sent people on suicide missions. We did terrible things, and yes, we survived because of it. But we paid a price for that survival, a price that will haunt us forever. Do you regret it?" "I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life lost on both sides. But I do not regret fighting. I do not regret surviving. Given the same choice again, I would do it all over again. That is what it means to be human. We do what must be done, and we live with the consequences. Across the galaxy, the Council species struggled to understand what had happened. How had they been defeated by such a young species? Military analysts studied the battles, trying to learn lessons. Philosophers debated the nature of humanity. Politicians argued about future policy toward Earth. But most ordinary citizens simply felt relief. The war was over. Humans had proven to be too dangerous to fight, so they would be left alone. Perhaps in time, relationships could normalize. Perhaps humans could become trading partners, even allies, or perhaps they would remain the galaxy's dangerous outsiders, respected out of fear rather than friendship. On Earth, in the ruins of what had once been Geneva, a memorial was built. 6 billion names were carved into black stone, one for each person who had died in the war. It took 3 years to complete. At the dedication ceremony, President Santos stood before the massive wall of names and spoke to the survivors. "We paid a terrible price for our freedom," she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. 6 billion souls lost, cities destroyed, our beautiful planet scarred. We did things we are not proud of. We became something dark and terrible to survive. The galaxy now fears us, perhaps rightly so. She paused, looking at the names stretching into the distance. But we survived. We are still here. We are still free. And that freedom, purchased with so much blood, must never be taken for granted. We must rebuild. We must heal. We must become better than we were forced to be during the war. But we must also remember. Remember what we paid. Remember what we did. Remember that humanity will never kneel to anyone. The crowd stood in silence, each person touching the wall, finding the names of loved ones lost. Admiral Okonkwo stood at the back of the crowd, an old man now, his hair white, his face lined with age and sorrow. He had led humanity to victory, but the cost weighed on him every day. He thought about every order he had given, every life he had spent like currency to buy survival. Was it worth it? Someone asked beside him. He turned to see Chen Wei, also aged by the war, also carrying the weight of difficult choices. Kresheva's forearms trembled as she looked at the damage report. The old Velthian diplomat had lived for 300 years, but she had never felt this tired. Around her, the council chamber of Refuge Station Talos 9 was falling apart. Lights flickered. The air smelled like burning metal and fear. "Shields are down to 12%, Commander Zektor announced. His voice was flat, emotionless. That was how the Karathi dealt with death. They simply stopped feeling. "The swarm will reach us in 6 days. 6 days. Kresheva looked around the circular table at the representatives of 7 dying species. Once their people had numbered in the trillions. Now they were down to 2.3 million souls crammed into this failing station, orbiting a dying star that barely gave enough light to see by. "We could surrender," suggested one of the council members, a Thraxian whose name Kresheva had forgotten. So many had died that remembering names felt pointless. "The swarm does not accept surrender," Kresheva replied. "They consume. They assimilate. They turn everything they touch into more of themselves." She had watched it happen. 30 years ago, the Velkaran swarm had appeared at the edge of the galaxy. No one knew where they came from. They were part machine, part living tissue, all moving as one mind. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply arrived and they ate everything. The Thraxians had tried to reason with them. Their great thinkers had created logic puzzles and mathematical proofs to show that cooperation was better than destruction. The swarm had consumed their homeworld in 48 hours. The Velthians had sent diplomats offering trade, technology, friendship. Kresheva herself had been on that mission. She still remembered watching the swarm ships tear through their fleet like it was made of paper. She had escaped in a life pod. 13 million Velthians had not. The Karathi had fought. Their military was the strongest in the known galaxy. They had weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand a supernova. They lasted 3 years. Then the swarm learned how their technology worked and turned it against them. Now Commander Zektor commanded a fleet of 12 ships and most of them barely flew. One by one, all 7 species had fallen. The survivors had gathered here at Talos 9, hoping that hiding near a dead star would keep them safe. It had not. There must be something, said another voice. This one belonged to Dr. Yenna Solis, a young Thraxian scientist. She was barely 40 years old, which made her a child by their standards. But she was also brilliant. Some weapon we have not tried. Some strategy we have not considered. We have tried everything, Zektor said. We have analyzed the swarm from every angle. Their coordination is perfect. Their adaptation is instant. They learn from every mistake. Fighting them is like fighting gravity itself. Yenna's large eyes, black and reflective like pools of oil, did not blink. Thraxians never blinked when they were thinking hard. Then perhaps we need to look backwards instead of forwards. What do you mean? Kresheva asked. I have been studying the restricted archives, Yenna said quietly. The forbidden sections that we were told never to access. The room went silent. The restricted archives contained knowledge from the precursors, the ancient race that had ruled the galaxy 50,000 years ago. They had disappeared suddenly, leaving behind only ruins and warnings. Most species agreed that their knowledge was too dangerous to use. That is illegal, Zektor said. We are about to die, Yenna replied. I do not think laws matter anymore. Kresheva felt something cold move through her. But Yenna was right. When facing extinction, what was the point of rules? What did you find? Yenna pulled out a data tablet. Her hands shook slightly as she activated it. References to something called the Quarantine World. The precursors fought a war 50,000 years ago. They won, but barely. Instead of destroying their enemy, they sealed them away in a pocket dimension. A prison outside normal space. What kind of enemy? Kresheva asked. A species, Yenna said. One so dangerous that the precursors chose imprisonment over extermination. The records call them... She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. Humans. The word meant nothing to most of the council, but Kresheva felt her blood go cold. She had read some of the precursor warnings when she was young and foolish. She remembered fragments, phrases that had seemed like myth. What do the records say about them? She asked. Yenna read from the tablet. Never release. Never contact. They cannot be predicted. They do not think as collectives. Each one is different. Each one is chaos. They wage war for ideas, not resources. They will kill for strangers they have never met. They will die for concepts that do not exist. They are individually weak but collectively unstoppable. The chaos they bring cannot be controlled. They sound like monsters, someone said. Or saviors, Yenna replied. The records say the precursors sealed them away not because they lost, but because the cost of winning was too high. These humans nearly destroyed the precursors, and the precursors were more advanced than we are. Kresheva understood what Yenna was suggesting. It was insane. It was desperate. It was their only chance. You want to summon them, she said. Yes, Yenna replied. I have found coordinates. I have found the beacon codes. If we use the station's remaining power, we can activate a portal. We can bring them here. To do what? Zektor demanded. You read the warnings? They are chaos. They cannot be controlled. We might be summoning something worse than the swarm. Or we might be summoning the only thing the swarm cannot predict, Yenna said. Think about it. The swarm defeats us because they think like we do, logic, patterns, unity. But these humans, they think differently. Each one is unique. The swarm would not be able to adapt to them because there is nothing consistent to adapt to. The council argued for hours. Some called it suicide. Others called it their only hope. In the end, Kresheva called for a vote. 4 voted yes. 3 voted numbered democracy. Kresheva thought was a strange thing to practice when facing extinction. But it was all they had left. Dr. Solis, Kresheva said, her voice heavy with the weight of what they were about to do. Prepare the beacon. We will attempt contact with the humans. Understood, Yenna said, but her hands were shaking. That night, Kresheva stood at the observation window looking out at the dying red star. In the distance, she could see the lights of the swarm fleet approaching. Thousands of ships, all moving as one, all coming to consume everything she had left. She thought about the warnings, about chaos and unpredictability, about a species so dangerous that the mightiest civilization in history had chosen to lock them away forever. In 6 days, the swarm would arrive. In 6 days, everyone she had failed to save would die, unless the humans were everything the warnings said they were, and that thought terrified her more than the swarm ever could. The beacon chamber was deep in the heart of Talos 9, in a section that had been sealed for decades. Dr. Yenna Solis stood before the precursor device with her small team of engineers. The machine was enormous, taller than any building the station had, made of a black metal that seemed to absorb light. "Are you certain this will work?" asked Rentok, one of her assistants. He was young, barely trained, but most of the experienced scientists were dead. "No," Yenna said honestly. "The instructions are incomplete. The precursors did not want anyone using this technology." She ran her hand over the controls. They were covered in symbols that hurt to look at, as if they existed in more dimensions than her eyes could process. It had taken her 3 days to decode enough to attempt activation. "This is not a communication device," she said, mostly to herself. "It is a summoning portal. One way. Whatever is on the other side will be pulled through whether they want to come or not." "That seems cruel," Rentok said. Yenna thought about the 2.3 million refugees in the station, about the children who would die when the swarm arrived, about entire civilizations reduced to memory. "Yes," she agreed, "but we are out of kind options." She activated the power feed. The station's lights dimmed as enormous energy flowed into the beacon. Somewhere, alarms were blaring. They were using power meant for life support, for the shields, for everything that kept people alive. They had perhaps 1 hour before critical systems failed. The beacon began to hum. It was a sound that Yenna felt in her bones, in her teeth, in the base of her skull. Reality itself seemed to bend around the machine. "I am reading the historical data while we wait," Rentok said, his eyes on his tablet. "About the humans. Did you know the precursors fought them for 200 years? "I know," Yenna said. "It says here that humans never evolved a hive mind. Each one is completely separate. They cannot share thoughts. They are," he paused, searching for the word, "psychically deaf." "Yes. But they form groups larger than their empathy should allow. They create nations of billions despite not being able to feel each other's minds. How is that possible?" Yenna had wondered the same thing. Every other species in the galaxy had some form of telepathic connection. Even weak ones could sense emotions, share basic thoughts. It was how civilization worked. How could you build trust without being able to feel someone's honesty? "They use words," Yenna said. "Sounds, symbols. They communicate entirely through external means." "That sounds lonely," Rentok said quietly. The beacon's hum grew louder. The air began to shimmer. Yenna could see something forming in the space above the machine. A tear in reality opening like a wound. "The precursors wrote that humans are paradoxes," Rentok continued reading. "They are capable of extreme altruism and extreme violence, often by the same individual. They wage war not just for resources but for ideas, for concepts like freedom and honor and revenge. They will die to protect strangers they have never met. They will also kill millions over disagreements about philosophy." "Step back," Yenna ordered. The portal was fully open now, a circular window into somewhere else. Through it she could see darkness and strange lights. Something moved in that darkness. A figure stepped through the portal. It was smaller than Yenna expected, perhaps only 2 meters tall. It wore some kind of armor, dark and angular, covered in equipment she did not recognize. In its hands was a weapon pointed directly at her. The figure's head was enclosed in a helmet with a reflective visor. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the figure reached up and removed the helmet. Yenna found herself looking at a face unlike any she had seen. 2 eyes, small and round, skin the color of dark earth, hair black and pulled back tight. The features were strange, almost primitive, but the eyes were intelligent and alert. "Where am I?" the figure said. The voice was female, and the words came out as sounds, not thoughts. Yenna had prepared a translation device, but it took a moment to activate. When she spoke, the device converted her telepathic patterns into sound. "You are on Refuge Station Talos 9. I am Dr. Yenna Solis. We summoned you here." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Summoned? You mean you dragged me through against my will?" "Yes," Yenna said. There was no point in lying. "We are desperate." The woman looked around the chamber, taking in everything with quick, efficient glances. Her weapon never wavered. "I'm Sergeant Maya Chen, Earth Defense Force. Year 2847 by our calendar. I was on patrol duty when your portal grabbed me. My squad is going to be very confused." "Earth," Yenna repeated. "That is the name of your homeworld?" "Yes." which is apparently in a pocket dimension you people locked us in 50,000 years ago. Maya's voice was bitter. We found the barriers a long time ago. We've been trapped, fighting our own wars, having our own history, completely cut off from the rest of the universe. And now you pull me through? Why? Yenna gestured to her tablet. She pulled up images of the swarm of destroyed worlds of the approaching fleet. We are dying, all of us, the last survivors of 7 species. Something called the Velcaran swarm is consuming the galaxy. In 5 days they will reach the station and kill everyone here. Maya studied the images. Her face showed no emotion, but Yenna saw her grip tighten on her weapon. How many? How many what? How many ships are coming? The sensor readings show approximately 400,000 vessels, Yenna said. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then impossibly she smiled. It was not a happy expression. It was the smile of a predator seeing prey. Good, Maya said. Finally a fair fight. A fair fight? Rentok said, his voice high with panic. That is 400,000 ships against our 12 remaining vessels. Maya looked at him. Yeah, like I said, fair. Yenna felt confusion wash over her. This was not the reaction she expected. You do not understand. The swarm cannot be defeated. They adapt to everything. They learn from every battle. They move as one mind. And that's their weakness, Maya said. She lowered her weapon slightly. Look, I saw your refugees on my way in. I saw the children. The injured. I get what's at stake here. She paused, and for a moment her expression softened. I don't know why you people locked us away. I don't know what my ancestors did to make you so afraid. But I can see that you're out of options. Yes, Yenna said quietly. Then here's what I need, Maya said. I need your fastest scout ship. I need access to your weapon systems. And I need you to not ask questions about what I'm going to do. You are going to fight them? Kresheva's voice came from the doorway. The old diplomat had arrived with Commander Zektor. Alone? Maya turned to face them. For now, but I'm going to need backup soon. The portal is still open on my end. My people saw me get pulled through. They're watching. Your people? Zektor asked. Humanity, Maya said. All 200 billion of us. We've been trapped in that pocket dimension for 50,000 years. We've built civilizations, fought wars, reached the stars in our own little prison, and now we know there's a way out. She looked directly at Kresheva. I saw your records. I know what the warnings say about us. That we're chaos. That we're unpredictable. That we're dangerous. Yes, Kresheva said. Maya nodded slowly. Good, you should be afraid of us. But right now, you need to be more afraid of them. She pointed at the image of the swarm on the tablet. So here's my offer. Give me a ship. Let me show you what one human can do. Then we'll talk about what 200 billion humans can do. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the failing station. Finally, Kresheva's 4 arms made a gesture of acceptance. Commander Zektor will provide you with our fastest ship. Thank you, Maya said. Then she put her helmet back on and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. One more thing. What do you call those creatures? The swarm? The Velcaran swarm, Yenna said. Maya's voice came through her helmet speaker, distorted and cold. Good. I like to know the name of things before I kill them. Then she was gone, and Yenna was left staring at the empty doorway, wondering what they had just unleashed. The command center of Talos 9 was packed with people watching the monitors. Kresheva stood at the front, her 4 arms crossed, trying to hide the trembling that would not stop. On the main screen, a single small ship moved away from the station, heading directly toward the massive swarm fleet. She is insane, Commander Zektor said flatly. She is going to die. Dr. Yenna Solis stood beside them, her eyes fixed on the screen. Perhaps. But look at her trajectory. She is not running. She is not hiding. She's flying straight at them. The swarm fleet filled the space ahead like a dark cloud. 400,000 ships, each one a nightmare of metal and flesh, all moving in perfect synchronization. The coalition had learned that the swarm operated as one mind, one consciousness distributed across millions of bodies and machines. It made them unstoppable. There was no confusion, no miscommunication, no fear. Maya's small scout ship was barely a dot compared to that armada. She is broadcasting something, one of the communications officers said, on all frequencies. Put it through, Kresheva ordered. Maya's voice filled the command center. She was speaking in Galactic Common now, though her accent was strange and her grammar was broken. Velcaran swarm. You have something we want. Surrender the refugees' homeworlds or face consequences. Silence. Then the swarm responded. Its voice was thousands of voices speaking as one, perfectly synchronized, emotionless. We are inevitable. We are unity. We are perfection. What are you? I am human, Maya said. That means I am the thing you should have feared. Her ship accelerated. On the sensors, they could see her arming the antimatter warhead that Zektor had given her. It was their last one, powerful enough to destroy a small moon. She is going to ram their capital ship, Zektor said. Suicide attack, but Maya did not ram them. At the last moment, she fired the warhead forward while her ship turned sharply. The weapon continued toward the swarm's massive central vessel while Maya's ship dove beneath it. No, Yenna said, studying the sensors. She did not arm it to detonate. She is letting them capture it. Why would she do that? Kresheva asked. They watched as swarm vessels surrounded Maya's ship. Tractor beams locked on. Her systems shut down. Within minutes, her ship was being pulled into the capital vessel's docking bay. She surrendered, someone whispered. She gave up, but Yenna shook her head. No, she is doing something else. Something we cannot see. Inside the swarm capital ship, Maya allowed herself to be pulled from her vessel. Biomechanical creatures, half machine and half living tissue, surrounded her. They did not speak. They simply grabbed her and connected cables to her armor. She felt the intrusion immediately. The swarm was trying to connect her mind to their network. They wanted to assimilate her, to make her part of their collective consciousness. Most species felt terror at this point. The loss of self, the dissolution into the group mind, it was the ultimate death. Maya felt nothing but calm. The swarm's consciousness flooded into her thoughts. It was like standing in an ocean of voices, all speaking at once, all perfectly in tune. She could feel millions of minds, all thinking as one, all moving toward the same goals with mechanical precision. They expected her to dissolve, to be absorbed, to become another voice in their chorus. Instead, Maya pushed back. The swarm had never encountered a mind like hers. Human consciousness was not meant to join with others. It was isolated, individual, full of contradictions. Maya thought about her mother and her drill sergeant at the same time. She remembered love and hate. She felt fear and courage. She held opposing ideas in her head without needing them to resolve. To the swarm, it was like static, like noise, like chaos injected directly into their perfect order. Maya smiled inside her helmet and pushed harder. She thought about Earth, about 200 billion humans all thinking different thoughts. She thought about arguments and disagreements and wars fought over ideas. She thought about art and music and the fact that no two humans ever agreed on what was beautiful. The swarm tried to process this, tried to categorize it, tried to find the pattern. There was no pattern. Maya felt the swarm's consciousness beginning to fracture around her. Sections of their network were becoming confused. Ships were receiving contradictory orders. The perfect synchronization was breaking down. She focused on the antimatter warhead she had left in the docking bay. The one they thought was disarmed. The one she had given them on purpose. Here is what humans do best, she whispered, knowing the swarm could hear her thoughts. We lie, we trick. We make you think you have won, and then we change the rules. She triggered the warhead remotely. In the command center of Talos 9, everyone watched as the swarm's capital ship exploded. The blast was enormous, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. The shockwave tore through dozens of nearby vessels. She is dead, Zektor said quietly. The human is dead, but Yenna pointed at the sensors. No. Look, something launched from the ship just before the explosion. A small escape pod moving fast, weaving between swarm vessels. Half the enemy fleet was trying to intercept it. But their movements were erratic now, uncoordinated. Ships collided with each other. Some fired on their own forces. What is happening to them? Kresheva asked. Maya infected their network, Yenna said, understanding flooding through her. She put her own consciousness into their collective mind. Her individuality, her chaos, it is spreading through them like a virus. They cannot process it. They do not know how to deal with a mind that contradicts itself. On the screen, the swarm fleet was tearing itself apart, not from weapons, but from confusion. Some ships were trying to retreat. Others were attacking. None of them moved as one anymore. The escape pod reached Talos 9 and docked roughly. Medical teams rushed to meet it. Maya emerged walking, though her armor was scorched and cracked. She removed her helmet. Blood ran down the side of her face from a cut above her eye, but she was smiling. "Report," she said to the nearest officer. "How many ships did we destroy?" "We," Zektor said. "You destroyed their capital ship and at least 40 others. But you did something worse to them. Their fleet is in disarray. They are fighting each other." Maya nodded, wincing. "Good. That will buy us some time." "Maybe a few days? You knew this would work?" Kresheva asked. "No," Maya admitted. "I had no idea if it would work. But I had to try." She looked at them all, at the aliens who had summoned her, who had pulled her from her home out of desperation. "You need to understand something about humans. We do not fight like you do. We do not think in terms of logic and patterns. We fight with tricks and emotions and lies. We are not honorable warriors. We are survivors who will do anything to win. The precursors were right to fear you," Kresheva said quietly. "Maybe," Maya said. She sat down heavily, exhaustion catching up to her. "But right now you need what we are. Because what I just did to the swarm, that was one human. Imagine what 200 billion of us could do." She looked up at the ceiling toward where the portal to Earth still waited. "They saw what happened, my people. They have been watching through the breach. And I can tell you what they are thinking right now. They are thinking that there is finally a way out of our prison, and they are thinking about those refugees I saw. The children. The dying. What will they do?" Yenna asked. Maya's smile was tired but genuine. "They are going to vote. We always vote. It is a human thing. And when they vote to come through, to help you, to fight the swarm, you are going to wish the precursors had kept us locked away forever, because we do not do anything halfway." She closed her eyes, leaning back against the wall. "Wake me when my people arrive. We have a war to fight." In the command center, the coalition leaders looked at each other. The swarm fleet was still visible on the monitors, scattered and confused but not destroyed. And somewhere behind them, through a portal to a prison dimension, 200 billion humans were deciding whether to save the galaxy or let it die. Kresheva wondered which option terrified her more. Maya Chen woke to the sound of alarms. She had been asleep for only 6 hours, her body desperately needing rest after the battle, but something was happening. She grabbed her helmet and ran toward the command center. The corridors of Talos 9 were crowded with refugees, all staring at the windows. Maya looked out and felt her breath catch. Ships. Thousands of them, pouring through the portal from Earth like water from a broken dam. They were not sleek like the coalition vessels or biomechanical like the swarm. They were blocky and industrial, covered in weapons, marked with flags and symbols from hundreds of human nations. The Earth Defense Fleet had arrived. In the command center, chaos reigned. Kresheva was trying to coordinate with the incoming vessels while Zektor watched the sensors with something close to fear on his face. "How many?" Maya asked. 10,000 warships so far," Zektor said, "and they are still coming through. They are also bringing civilian vessels, transports, colony ships, medical frigates." "Of course they are," Maya said. She felt pride swell in her chest. "They voted to come." "I do not understand," Dr. Yenna Solis said. She stood next to Maya, her large eyes reflecting the lights of the incoming fleet. "Why bring civilians to a war zone?" "Because that is what humans do," Maya said. "We do not just send soldiers. We send doctors and teachers and farmers and engineers. We send everyone because we do not know which skills will be needed." A communication channel opened. A deep voice filled the command center. "This is Admiral Marcus Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Fleet, requesting permission to dock and meet with coalition leadership." Kresheva's hands moved across the controls. "Permission granted, Admiral. Welcome to Talos 9. An hour later, they gathered in the council chamber. Admiral Okonkwo was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. He wore a uniform covered in medals and ribbons. Behind him stood a dozen other humans, military and civilian both. "First," Okonkwo said, his voice formal, "let me apologize for the circumstances of our arrival. Sergeant Chen was pulled through your portal against her will. That was an act of desperation on your part, and we understand why." "You do not seem angry," Kresheva observed. "Oh, we are furious," Okonkwo said calmly. "But we are also practical." Chen reported what she saw. The refugees. The children. The swarm, we watched her battle. He paused. Humanity took a vote. 4 billion voted to ignore you and seal the portal. 20 billion voted to send military aid only. 176 billion voted to come through and help however we can. Why? Zektor asked. You do not know us. We imprisoned your species for 50,000 years. Why help us? Okonkwo smiled, and it was a sad expression. Because despite everything, despite our violence and our wars and all our flaws, humans have this one stupid quality. We care about strangers. We see suffering and we cannot look away. He gestured to his staff. These are doctors, engineers, farmers, teachers. They volunteered to come to a dying station in a war zone because they saw your children on the broadcasts and could not sleep. A woman stepped forward. She had brown skin and kind eyes. I am Dr. Sarah Kim, Civilian Medical Corps. Where are your injured? We brought supplies. Another man, old and weathered. I am Agricultural Specialist Robert Torres. Your food production is failing. I can help fix that. One by one, they introduced themselves. Not soldiers, but people who wanted to help. Yenna felt something strange happening inside her. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. For the first time in years, she felt hope. The swarm will return, Zektor said, bringing them back to reality. Chen's attack disrupted them, but they will reorganize. When they come back, they will be prepared for human tactics. Good, Okonkwo said. We want them prepared. We want them thinking they understand us. He turned to Maya. Sergeant, report. Maya stood at attention. Sir, the swarm operates as a collective consciousness. They process information logically. They adapt to patterns. I was able to disrupt them by introducing chaos into their network, but it is only temporary. So we need to be more chaotic, Okonkwo said. We need to be so unpredictable that they cannot adapt. He looked at Zektor. Commander, I need to understand your military tactics. How have you been fighting them? Standard fleet engagement, Zektor said. Formation flying, coordinated fire, defensive screens. That is why you are losing, a new voice said. A human woman in military uniform stepped forward. She was young, with sharp eyes and scars on her hands. I am Captain Elena Volkov. I fought in the Mars Rebellion. Let me teach you how to fight a war you cannot win with normal tactics. Over the next 3 days, Talos 9 transformed. Human engineers swarmed over the failing systems, patching, repairing, and rebuilding. Civilian doctors set up medical stations and began treating the injured. Farmers worked with Thraxian scientists to restart food production. And in the training centers, human soldiers taught the coalition forces how to fight like humans. Yenna found herself in one of those training sessions, watching a human sergeant work with young Thraxian refugees. The refugees were children by their standards, barely 50 years old, but they had volunteered to fight. Your species thinks in logic trees, the sergeant was saying. His name was Rodriguez, and he had kind eyes despite his military bearing. The swarm thinks in logic trees too, so you have to stop thinking logically. You have to fight with emotion. But emotions are inefficient, one of the young Thraxians protested. Rodriguez smiled. Fear keeps you alive. Fear makes you check your corners, watch your back, stay alert. Anger makes you fight harder when you are tired. Love makes you protect the person next to you even when running away would be smarter. He tapped his chest. Emotions are not weaknesses. They are tools. They are weapons. The young Thraxian looked confused, but Yenna understood. She had seen Maya fight, had seen the joy in her eyes when facing impossible odds, the fury when defending the helpless. Humans did not fight in spite of their emotions. They fought because of them. That night, Yenna found Maya in the observation deck looking out at the Earth fleet. The ships were arranged in chaotic patterns, nothing like the organized formations the Coalition used. Your people argue a lot, Yenna said, sitting beside her. Maya laughed. You noticed. Yeah, we have about 12 different command structures that do not quite agree on strategy. The American fleet wants to do one thing. The European Union wants another. The African Coalition has a third idea, and the Asian Alliance thinks everyone else is wrong. That sounds like it would cause problems. It does, Maya admitted, but it also means the swarm cannot predict us. They can destroy one command structure and 11 others will respond in completely different ways. She looked at Yenna. We are not like you. We do not have unity. We barely tolerate each other most of the time. But when something threatens all of us, when we see innocent people suffering, we figure out how to work together badly, inefficiently, but we do it. The precursors were right about you, Yenna said quietly. You are chaos. Yeah, Maya said. But we are your chaos now. The alarms went off 3 hours later. The swarm had returned, and this time they brought everything they had. On the sensors, Yenna watched as a fleet 10 times larger than before entered the system. The swarm had called in reinforcements from across the sector. They were not here to assimilate anymore. They were here to exterminate. Admiral Okonkwo's voice came over all channels, calm and steady. All forces, this is it. The swarm knows we are here now. They know we are a threat, so they are going to try to destroy us completely. He paused. Good, let them try. Let them learn what happens when you threaten humans and the people they choose to protect. All ships engage at will. Show them what chaos really means. The human fleet broke formation and scattered in every direction. Coalition vessels, learning fast, followed their lead. And as the swarm fleet approached, organized and perfect and inevitable, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before, an enemy that refused to follow any rules at all. The final battle for Talos 9 had begun. The space around Talos 9 became a storm of fire and chaos. Dr. Yenna Solis watched from the command center as the battle unfolded in ways that made no logical sense. Human ships were everywhere and nowhere. They refused to hold formation. Some charged directly at the swarm fleet. Others hung back and fired from extreme range. A few did not fire at all, but instead broadcast strange signals. Sounds that Yenna later learned were human music and screaming. What are they doing? Commander Zektor asked, his voice strained. Confusing them, Admiral Okonkwo replied calmly. He stood at the command station watching dozens of screens at once. The swarm expects patterns. We are giving them noise. A coalition officer pointed at one screen. That human ship just rammed a swarm cruiser. Yes, Okonkwo said. Captain Martinez's ship lost engines, so he decided to use it as a missile. The crew? Evacuated to escape pods, mostly. Okonkwo's face showed no emotion, but Yenna saw his hands tighten on the console. War is not clean. On another screen, a human fighter squadron was flying in spirals, weaving between swarm vessels, drawing fire away from damaged coalition ships. One of the pilots was broadcasting over open channels, shouting something about glory and death. He crashed his damaged fighter into a swarm command node, destroying both. They fight like they do not care about dying, Zektor said. They care, Maya Chen said. She had joined them in the command center, her armor scorched from a sortie. But they care about other things more. They care about protecting the refugees, about keeping the swarm away from the children, about making sure their sacrifice matters. A swarm battle group broke through the human lines, heading directly for the station. Alarms blared. The station's remaining shields were already failing. We need to evacuate the civilians, Kreshva said, her forearms moving frantically across controls. No time, Okonkwo said. But we do not need time. We need courage. He opened a channel. All ships, this is Okonkwo. I need volunteers for a suicide run. We have swarm vessels approaching the station. Yenna expected silence, expected people to refuse. Instead, 73 ships responded immediately, their captains all saying the same word, acknowledged. She watched as those 73 vessels, human and coalition both, turned and accelerated toward the swarm group. They did not try to engage from a distance. They flew directly into the enemy formation and self-destructed, taking dozens of swarm ships with them. Yenna felt something break inside her. These people, these humans who had been prisoners for 50,000 years, were dying for strangers. For her people. Why? She whispered. Maya heard her. Because someone has to. Because if not us, then who? Because we looked at your children and saw our children. Because we are human. And that means we do stupid, beautiful, terrible things. The battle raged for hours. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of ships. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The swarm's coordination was failing. Human tactics were too unpredictable, too emotional, too chaotic. Every time the swarm adapted to one strategy, the humans switched to something completely different. They fought with mathematics and music, with precision and madness, with technology and raw courage. A human medical ship, damaged and unable to retreat, broadcast the sounds of crying babies from the refugee center. Yenna did not understand why until she saw swarm ships hesitate, their collective consciousness struggling to process the concept of protecting young. A coalition cruiser, crewed by Velthian and human officers together, used an ancient precursor tactic that should not have worked. It did because the humans modified it in ways no logical mind would consider. On the station itself, swarm boarding parties broke through. They flooded the corridors with biomechanical soldiers, heading for the refugee centers. Maya led the defense alongside HFY and hundreds of volunteers. They fought in narrow corridors in zero-gravity sections, in rooms filled with civilians who had nowhere to run. Yenna found herself there too, carrying a weapon she barely knew how to use. A human medic named Dr. James Park fought beside her, shooting with one hand while trying to treat a wounded Thraxian child with the other. "Why are you here?" Yenna shouted over the noise of weapons fire. "You are a doctor." "Doctors protect life," Park shouted back. "Sometimes that means healing. Sometimes that means fighting." He pulled her down as a plasma bolt flew over their heads. "Stay low." A group of Thraxian children were trapped in a corner, too young to fight, too scared to run. Swarm creatures advanced on them, mechanical limbs clicking, weapons charging. Without thinking, Yenna ran forward, placing herself between the monsters and the children. She raised her weapon, knowing it would not be enough. Park was beside her instantly, then 3 human soldiers, then HFY, her forearms holding 4 different weapons, then more Coalition and human both forming a wall of bodies. The swarm creatures paused. Their collective consciousness tried to understand this behavior. Why would individuals sacrifice themselves for children that were not their own genetic offspring? In that moment of confusion, Maya threw an improvised explosive. The corridor exploded and the swarm creatures fell. The children were safe. In orbit, Admiral Okonkwo watched his fleet dwindle. They had started with 10,000 ships. Now they were down to 4,000. But the swarm had lost 10 times that number. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a signal from the swarm. Put it through." The voice of the collective consciousness filled the command center. For the first time, it did not sound unified. It sounded fractured, confused. "What are you?" Okonkwo smiled grimly. "We are human. We are chaos. We are everything you cannot predict or understand or assimilate. We are individuals who choose to die for each other. We are weak, but we are many. We are scared, but we fight anyway. We are the ones you should have left alone." "We cannot process you," the swarm said. "Your actions have no pattern. Your strategies contradict themselves. Your willingness to self-destruct makes no evolutionary sense." "Good," Okonkwo said. "Then let me teach you something about humanity. We are going to broadcast our entire history into your network. Every war, every peace, every act of kindness and every atrocity, every contradiction, every paradox, every moment where we did something stupid because it was right." "No," the swarm said. "That will cause cascade failures in our consciousness." "I know," Okonkwo said. And he gave the order. Every human ship began broadcasting, not weapons but information. Raw, unfiltered human history, art and war, love and hate, logic and madness. The truth of what humanity was, a species that contained multitudes that held opposing ideas in balance, that was individually weak but collectively unstoppable. The swarm's collective consciousness could not process it. Their unity, their strength became their weakness. They tried to categorize the contradictions and failed. They tried to find patterns in the chaos and found only more chaos. Yenna watched from the command center as the swarm fleet began to fall apart. Not from weapons, but from confusion. Ships broke formation. Some fled in different directions. Others fired on each other. Some simply stopped moving. Their collective consciousness fractured into millions of individual minds, each one suddenly aware of its own existence and terrified. The battle ended not with a final explosion but with a slow collapse. The swarm fleet scattered across the system, no longer a united force but thousands of lost individuals, each one trying to understand what had happened to them. Silence fell over Talos 9. Then slowly, cheering began. Humans and coalition members alike, celebrating survival against impossible odds. Weeks later, Yenna stood in the observation deck with Maya. The station was rebuilding. Human engineers had restored power. Human farmers had restarted food production. Human doctors had saved thousands of lives. The portal to Earth remained open. More humans were coming through every day, along with supplies and equipment, but also artists and musicians and teachers, people who wanted to build, not just fight. Were the precursors right? Yenna asked. Should they have kept you sealed away? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Probably, she admitted. We are dangerous. We are unstable. We do not always make the right choices. We start wars over stupid things. We hurt each other. We hurt ourselves. She looked at Yenna. But we also show up when no one else will. We fight for strangers. We die for people we have never met. We do not give up even when we should. That is what makes you human, Yenna said. Yeah, Maya said, for better or worse. Through the window they could see Earth for the first time. The portal had stabilized enough to see through clearly. A blue-green planet scarred by ancient conflicts but still beautiful. Still alive. And its people, imperfect and chaotic and unpredictable, were streaming into a galaxy that had feared them but now needed them. Kreshva joined them at the window. The old Velthian looked tired but hopeful. What happens now? She asked. Maya smiled. Now we rebuild. We help your people recover. We figure out what to do with all those individual swarm ships drifting out there. We learn to live together. She paused. And probably we argue a lot. Humans are really good at arguing. But you will stay? Kreshva asked. You will not return to Earth and seal the portal? We will stay, Maya said. Some of us will go back and forth. But humanity is part of the galaxy now. For better or worse, you are stuck with us.